Hi friends, Mindy here. Today we are going to be doing part 3 of our altered book series. We're going to be gluing some pages together. So just to recap, we have 2 books here which we have pulled out some pages. I have one that has a stitched binding and I have one that has a glued binding. So a couple things that you need for this. I have protected my work surface here with a craft mat. You can just put down some papers or whatever, but just protect your work surface because it's going to get gluey. I have matte gel medium. This is what I'll be using to glue my pages, but you could also use any kind of white PVA glue like Elmer's glue, Aleene's tacky glue. Just with that one, it's pretty thick, so you probably want to water it down. Even Elmer's, you might need to a little bit. You could use Mod Podge. I don't use Mod Podge a lot where I am because it's humid here and sometimes it can get sticky. Sometimes, not so much in the winter, but you know, I tend to not use that all that often. But anyway, today I will be using matte gel medium and a paintbrush. You could use a credit card scraper, and depending, you may need to do that. And then also I have some wax paper here, parchment paper, freezer paper, something just to kind of separate your pages because this part does get a little messy, or it can. I get messy, I'll put it that way. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with this one that has the glued binding. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I think this one will be the easiest one to kind of demonstrate. So if you kind of know ahead of time how you want to work through this journal, you may want to sort of create pockets ahead of time. And how you glue things down will kind of determine what you need to do for that if you do want to create pockets. But the first thing that I want to do here is I'm going to kind of glue these pages right here at the beginning. Remember, I was saying how these kind of already have some glue here, and they just from the way that the book is bound. So I think I will just go ahead and glue this together. And so there are a couple of schools of thought about this too. I am not maybe as patient as so I'm just going to paint this on. I'm not nearly maybe as patient as I should be or as other people are. There are some people who make altered books that will tell you to basically glue a page and then you put it together and let it sit and let it dry. And then you go to the next one. If you want to do it that way, you certainly can. I won't be doing that. I just the idea behind it is that it might help your pages lie flat better. But I kind of feel like, you know, once the book is closed and you've done everything to it, it's going to lay pretty flat anyway. If you're concerned about it, you can always just put some weight on it. So anyway, I just put a thin coat here. I tried to put it as evenly as I could. And then what I'm going to do is actually close the book on itself and let it just sort of pick up this page. And you can see, I mean, it's curling just a little bit. You can kind of see just from, you know, the moisture on the page, but I don't really feel like it's going to create too big of a problem for me. So I am just going to leave that and let that dry. Now, another consideration is, you know, you might, depending on how thin your papers are, you might want to glue multiple pages together. So right here, this is where we have, you know, the front page, and then we tore out the pages, and then we have this back page. So these are going to get glued together automatically, but we're just kind of dealing with this first set here. So you could definitely kind of glue another one here if you wanted to make this first page kind of thick. I don't really feel like that's necessary, just because I don't think that I'll be doing a whole lot of creating on this first section, but I am going to glue these pages right here. So I'm going to stick my wax paper back in here, and then I'm just gonna do this again. And again, I'm just slapping on some matte gel medium here. Trying to be careful, especially it's really, you know, at the edges, you want to make sure you have a good coat at the edges, because that's going to keep your paper together and make it feel like it's one page instead of, you know, anything else. So then you can kind of close that back on itself. And then now we have this next section, and I'm actually going to put a little piece of tissue, or not tissue, wax paper in between these two because they're both still wet. And that's just to try to prevent these from sticking to each other. And now here I'm sort of getting into this first section where we actually tore out pages. So I'm thinking maybe I will just show you, if you want to kind of create a pocket. Let me see how I want to do this. Maybe what I want to do is, let me just take this one. Whoops. This is the part I usually forget to put this back in there and I get everything gluey. So try to remember to put your wax paper in there. What I'm actually doing here is I'm going to glue this page to this section as well. So it will be basically 3 pages. Just to give it a nice thick, make it nice and thick. And it, you know, as you know, with paper, like when you get it wet and then you, and then it dries, it you know, it has a different texture to it, so it will feel pretty significantly thicker or more substantial once it dries. Right now it feels a little floppy, but that's just because everything's wet. And you can see I did not get this edge right here glued together very well, and that's kind of what I'm trying to avoid. So I'm going to add some more glue in here. I really want those edges to go down nice. All right. And if that happens and you know, as you're working through and you come across something like that, you can always just, you know, glue it back down. I have a little bubble right here. I'm just going to kind of smooth that out. And then now we're into this first section. So we have the pages that we tore out. We have this back page here. So what I'm actually going to do is create a pocket. And you can do this one of 2 ways. You can fold this kind of in and then like this, and then you have your pocket, or you can do it the other way. I'm going to actually do it this way, I think. And then I can always come through and cover this with paper or whatever. And so since I obviously don't want to have matte gel everywhere here, what I'm going to do is actually just use kind of a liquid adhesive. So I'm going to use my Barely Arts glue, and I'm going to run this along this edge right here. I'm trying to put a good amount, and then I'm going to just set this back down right here. And then I can actually put matte medium here. Oh, put the wax paper back. Always with the wax paper, if you can remember. I can never remember. Okay, so I'm just going to put this adhesive here, and this will just help strengthen this page a little bit. So then I'm going to fold this down. And if, you know, if you've seen, you know, anything that I do, I love little pockets and tuck spots and different things like that. So the reason you could tear this off if you wanted to, but I'm just leaving it that way because it's going to add some stability to this pocket by having this extra kind of paper here. And then if I want to, I can always come in and glue something over the top, and then it's just going to add even more stability to that. So I'm going to now move this one over. And I'll just just keep going. So this is the back side of that pocket. So we're going to take this next page. You can see here, this is where we tore out those pages. And we're going to just glue these together. So I'm just going to take my matte medium again. And again, just making sure you get all the way to the edges. And I do try to keep it, you know, you want a good thin coat. And depending on also the age of your book, you might find that some of the older papers are really thirsty. Like they just absorb, the really porous papers, they just really absorb your glue. And so one thing that you can kind of do to help with that is to take your paintbrush with just a little bit of water and kind of just add just a very thin coat of water over your page, just enough to make it kind of just appear a little bit wet, and then add your glue over the top. It will help your glue kind of spread easier, so you're not just, you know, putting down so much glue and really saturating everything. Okay, so now what I'm going to do at this point with this particular book is I'm actually going to close this up, this book, and I'm going to let it sit and dry, and we'll move on to the other book. You kind of get the idea. You're just gluing pages together, and you can make pockets. There's all kinds of different pockets that you can make. But with these being as wet as they are, I want to kind of just put these together like this, and then I'm going to set something heavy on top of that and just let them kind of sit and dry. Let me find something heavy. I'm just gonna, all right, put that there. And then now we can work on this little book. Now, this one is a little bit different in the sense that there's not, you know, an area in between every other page where there's like something that's been torn out. But wherever the seams are, wherever you can see the stitches, I'm actually want to glue these two pages together just to try to protect those stitches as much as I can. So again, we have this kind of, you know, wonky kind of flyleaf situation here happening. I think it's called a flyleaf. I keep calling it a flyleaf. Someone can correct me if that's not the right verbiage to use. But I'm going to just go ahead and do this page because these always annoy me that they don't lay flat anyway. So I'm just gonna, and again, this is a newer book, so it's not going to be quite as porous. The pages aren't going to be quite as thirsty, so I don't necessarily need to worry about kind of adding any water. And that really just depends on the paper that you're using. And you kind of get a feel for it. If you're really having to kind of, you know, work your glue to try to get it to spread around, you may just need to add a little water just to help you out. Okay, so we have that one. And now, again, here are the stitches. So I definitely want to glue these two together. This is just personal preference. You really don't have to necessarily do it this way. I just feel like anything that I can do to kind of help protect those stitches is just going to be better in the long run. Make sure I don't end up, you know, accidentally doing something and trying to tear it out and then ruin all the work that I've done. So this isn't necessarily the fastest process for doing this, but again, like I said, there are some people who will tell you that after every page that you glue, you should let it sit, and you can certainly do that. You let it sit and dry with some wax paper in it like I have here and something heavy on top, and that will really go a long way to helping your pages stay flat. I don't really feel like I'm going to have too much of an issue with that. I could be wrong, but we seem like we're doing okay. So I am going to get another piece of wax paper here. Sorry if that crinkling is annoying from this, but just want to kind of protect what I'm doing. And then, so I glued those two together. I think I'm going to glue now the next two instead of, I'm not going to glue this this has 2 pages glued together, right? So I'm not gluing it to here. I'm moving on and making this next page, this next set of 2 pages, if that makes sense. So, and you can do this really as many pages as you want to, especially when you're dealing with one that's sewn like this, because there's not a gap in between, like where we've taken out the pages, because these are right next to each other. But I really feel like 2 is going to be sufficient for what I'm intending to do with this journal. And also just keeping in mind, you know, you're going to be adding layers and adding paint and adding things, and that's going to add to the stability of each of the papers anyway. So I don't necessarily feel like I need to, I don't necessarily just feel like I need to add, you know, multiple pages. But if you wanted a really like thick page that you could really, you know, a nice thick substrate that you could work on, you may want to add, you know, you may want to glue 3 or 4 pages together. The process is the same. And in fact, right here, I have stitches right here. So on this page, I'm going to actually go ahead and glue this 3rd page, because again, I'm just trying to protect where these stitches are. I just don't want them to get messed up. So I'm going to go ahead and actually make this 3 pages. So this one's going to be just a little bit thicker, so it will hold up to maybe some more collaging or more paint or whatever ends up happening. I'm just gonna push this down. Doing it this way just kind of helps make sure your page is kind of lined up and glued down well. Okay. And I can see right there, I did not get that glued. You can see I have that gap. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So I can just kind of add some glue down in there. Okay. And now we can move on. Again, I'm going to do these next 2 pages. And again, I'm just checking to see like where my stitches are. So again, I have stitches here, so I'm going to end up making this 3 pages. So I'm going to glue this one to here and then this to there to cover those stitches. So I'm not going to make you sit and watch as I glue all of these together. I may, after I've glued a few pages, I may let this sit and dry for a while and then come back to it. So it may be a little bit of time before I get all the pages glued back together. But once I do, I'll come back on and just do a flip of both of the books so you can see how everything kind of turned out once everything is glued and dried. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I just finished gluing all of these pages together and everything is still wet. I have my wax paper kind of tucked in all of the pages. I'm going to go set this underneath something really heavy and I'm probably going to let this dry overnight. I just want to make sure everything is nice and dry, and so I'll do the same thing with the other book as well, but I just want to kind of show you. This is kind of what it's looking like. I just tuck the wax paper kind of back and forth in there and keep all the pages separate just in case anything seeps out or whatever. So when these are dry, I will be back. Okay, so I'm back. My papers are dry. I want to say they dried for about 36 hours. They could maybe even stand another day or so, but I went ahead and pulled out all of the wax paper and everything. How long they take to dry is really going to depend on you. You could even take a heat tool, you know, depends on where you're living and all, just the kind of paper, the kind of glue, all those different factors. So, but what I thought I would do is just kind of take you and flip through and show you how they turned out. So this is the stitched binding one, and you can see they're pretty thick. I've got a little bit of wrinkling in here on a couple of them, but it's okay. And there were some that, you know, just depending on where the stitches were, like this one got a little wrinkle here. It's going to be okay. I can cover that up. But I didn't create any pockets or anything in this one. You can see my pages are pretty much flat. Part of that is because I left them, you know, under some really heavy books for a couple days while they were drying. So this is ready to go. I have nice thick pages to work on. It should hold paint pretty well. That one's ready to go. Now this one is the one that was the glued binding, and so I actually did a few different things in here and created some pockets. So this was that first page. Now this page right here, I created the pocket and then this one page without gluing it to anything else. So I may need to reinforce this. This just feels a little bit too weak to really hold anything else. So I'll probably reinforce this with some other paper. And then here I created another pocket, but on the back side. So right here, but on this one, I did glue. I think this ended up being like 3 pages together to make a really nice sturdy pocket there. And then these are just a couple pages here glued together. You can see again, like toward the binding, you can see a little bit of wrinkle. Part of that's just, I think I got a little too impatient. And then again, I created a pocket. I can see that this is pulling away. I'm gonna have to re-glue that, which I can do, that's no problem. But I created another pocket, and what I did here isn't, I just folded this page kind of in toward the spine, and then I glued it here. And then I created another one here, and then some more just pages. I did another one of those pockets like I did at the beginning, but this time I made sure to double up this back page, so that feels just a little bit more substantial and sturdy. And then it's ready to go. This one, toward the end of this book, I can feel like the pages still feel cold, so this book is not completely dry yet, I can tell you that. So I'm going to put this actually back underneath some heavy books to continue to dry. I'm going to give this probably another 24 hours before I try to do anything in it. I don't need the wax paper anymore. The glue is not going to, you know, leak out or anything at this point, but I just can tell toward the end of this book where it was you know, these pages just are not quite set up. And if your pages kind of feel real soft, I don't know, or kind of flimsy, or if they feel cold, if you feel that, like if you can touch them and they feel kind of cold, your glue is not dry. So just give it some more time. It should not feel, you shouldn't feel any dampness or anything in the paper. And so I'm just going to let these sit probably for another day or so, but they were dry enough to show at least how they turned out. So I will probably come back and maybe do a couple other videos of showing how I kind of work through here. And I normally do, you know, voiceover videos, so instead of doing these kind of real-time ones. So you can let me know in the description if having this kind of slower version in real time was better, or if you prefer, you know, the voiceover and the sped up version. So I just thought for these books it would be easier to kind of talk you through it as I was going. So anyway, these are the 2 books that I have set up to go. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Please like this video, give it a thumbs up, and that just helps other people find my channel. And subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.